Hi, and thanks so much for joining us as we review the monitoring and data entry procedure as part of the Midwest New Mexico CAP education training series. The learning objective for today's video is to learn about the ongoing steps that Midwest New Mexico CAP Head Start and Early Head Start take to monitor our learning environments, and to learn about the education team requirements for data entry, and to know where to find all the related procedures that are discussed today. The resources that we discussed today, including the ongoing monitoring and data entry procedure, are located in the Education Procedures and Forms book that is in every classroom, the Education Procedures and Form folder on the drive, as well as on the agency website under Education Forms. If you have questions about where to find resources or want more information, don't forget to watch the video, Locating Resources in the Training series. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about ongoing monitoring, which is procedure 13.06. Let's go ahead and take a close look at this procedure. And again, this procedure is located in your Procedures and Forms folder on the drive, as well as in your Procedures and Forms book. So here's procedure 1306. Procedure 1306 is specific to ongoing monitoring. And ongoing monitoring is really how we as an agency oversee all of our systems to ensure that really we're effectively implementing our education program. And that those monitoring procedures, they occur at different levels, and we're going to talk specifically today at the center or agency level. All of our monitoring documentation is entered into a couple of different places. Managers who visit sites, they enter their documentation into a system called DataSay. Center directors, content managers, specialists, teachers, really everybody enters in information into the system called Child Plus. And this system is where like all of our ERSI information is, and all of our child specific information is. So this is a child management system. We also enter in screening data, and this includes data from our 45-day screeners, including our developmental screenings, and in the areas of visual motor, language, and then gross body motor awareness. And also our behavioral screeners are entered, and that information is reported. Another type of ongoing monitoring that we have are observations, and these classroom observations can occur in a variety of ways. They can be scheduled observations, so a teaching team may know that somebody's going to come and observe in their classroom, or they can be more spontaneous and occur randomly, so somebody might just show up to observe. This would be either the center director, a manager, maybe a mental health consultant, who could just show up into a classroom with very little notice to observe. We do use certain tools for classroom observations through coaching and through education, and so those are discussed here in classroom observations. Center directors do conduct 4 classroom observations every year, and they complete a form titled Classroom Walkthrough Checklist, and those forms are in the teacher binder and are also in the procedures folder. Again, managers and specialists might observe informally to come in, and they will leave some observation data, some feedback at the end of that, and provide a debriefing session for any questions. Another area that is monitored are lesson plans and individualizing, as well as assessment. Lesson plans are reviewed, every lesson plan, by the child development coach or the center director, who are responsible for approving those lesson plans weekly and providing some feedback. We really look at lesson plans in terms of content to ensure that the content that's being provided on lesson plans is developmentally appropriate, and that we incorporate those required curriculum components, as well as that we're covering the objectives for development and learning and our school readiness goals. The center director and the child development coach also monitor TSG data So this could be checkpoint data as well as observation data. And that also happens through the content managers, specifically the education manager, who will monitor checkpoint status information, as well as do spot checks on observation information, checking for quantity and quality of observation data. As an agency, we also collect data on school readiness and child outcomes. So this is part of our ongoing monitoring procedure. Throughout the year, we gather that data using our Teaching Strategies Gold Assessment System, and then that data is monitored and connected to prior assessments so that agency decisions can be made and planning can be done. Finally, we have a lot of informal monitoring procedures, and this can be just the center director stopping by to check in. This also includes things like regular staff meetings. Maybe you have a weekly check-in with your team that happens with your coach. This can happen through the administrative staff like content managers. Also, your specialist or the Head Start director can engage in this type of informal monitoring. So let's just take a look at the few takeaways that we have from our ongoing monitoring procedure. Remember that monitoring occurs regularly and that it can be scheduled or authentic, meaning it can be random. So we can schedule an observation and let the teaching team know, or people can just drop into a classroom. We have different forms of monitoring, including lesson plan monitoring, monitoring screening data, monitoring through informal classroom observations like walkthroughs and check-ins. And finally, we use standardized monitoring. This occurs in the form of child outcomes like TSG data and through the use of things like class and TPOT. Now that we've had a chance to look at our monitoring procedure, let's take a look at our data entry procedure. Data entry is procedure 13.03 in the Procedures and Forms folder in the drive. So let's take a look at procedure 13.03. 13.03 is the data entry procedure for education team members. And this procedure goes through my teaching strategies gold, and when and how data is entered. This first part covers the login for my teaching strategies gold, which is provided through your coach or your center director. Also, that all team members who enter data into my teaching strategies must complete the first 3 teaching strategies gold modules and pass that iterator reliability certification prior to entering any information. If you have questions about that, that is on your education training checklist, and you can talk to your coach or your center director. Let's just review really quickly the data entry procedure. The first thing is that teachers are required to, at a minimum, enter data in on TSG Gold. So TS Gold is also, of course, the area where we enter our lesson plans. So this weekly minimum includes entering lesson plan data. It also includes collecting and entering data for checkpoint periods, and this can include observations and ranking data on children, individual children and individual child levels. Importantly, it is also required that assistant teachers help with this process. And so teaching teams work out their process for doing this, but that the assistant teacher does help with data collection, including entering observations and tracking documentation status. For both the assistant teacher and the teacher, it's very important that data entry is only scheduled to occur when either children are not present or interactions are very limited, such as at rest time. It is never appropriate to be entering data, for instance, during interest areas where child interactions should be occurring. It is preferable that observations be completed with individual children and not as a whole group. Group observations can be utilized but should be done sparingly. When a group observation is completed, it is important that we make sure to use information specific to children, but to not include any individual information. So that the names of the individual children on a group observation not be included, because that information is shared with all parents on that group observation. If a group observation is done, you can see here one way to avoid that confidentiality issue is to refer to children as either the other child or child 1, child 2, child 3, etc. whenever we are doing a group observation with multiple children. So that is the data entry procedure for education. Some things to remember are that education team members are required to enter data every week, and that's really a minimum. And that data is entered into My Teaching Strategies Gold. That before staff can complete any data, the Teaching Strategies Gold training and the IRR certification must be completed. Also, that data entry includes things that teachers do every day, including things like lesson planning, formative observations, so observations that are done throughout the year that inform our instruction, and our summative observations, which include our checkpoints that are done 4 times during the year. Very important to remember is that data is entered only when children are not present or when interactions with children are extremely limited, like at rest time. Thank you so much for joining us for this video. Don't forget to complete the knowledge check. The link is in the description box below this video.